afternoon and welcome, everyone. My name is Obi James, and it is a huge privilege to be moderating the session on leadership today. It's even huger because I can't wait for you to see who's on our panel for this conversation. We have an exciting conversation lined up, and I will introduce our panelists, whom need no introductions whatsoever. And as I do so, I hope that you will join me in welcoming them up to the stage as they come up. So first of all, we have Mrs. Kemi Adeosun. Mrs. Kemi Adeosun is a distinguished leader and Nigeria's former Ministry of Finance. Her tenure was defined by bold fiscal reforms and a relentless commitment to economic sustainability. Her leadership in driving transparency, these tax reforms, and fiscal discipline has left an indelible mark in Nigeria's path to financial stability. Join me in welcoming Mrs. Kemi Adeosun to the stage. Thank you. Have a seat. Thank you very much. Anyone? Secondly, I also have the privilege of welcoming Mr. Segun Aganga, who a lot of you know is a distinguished leader whose tenure as Nigeria's Minister of Finance and Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment marked a period of groundbreaking reforms in Nigeria. As the architect of Nigeria's Sovereign Wealth Fund and pioneer of economic diversification initiatives, Mr. Aganga's contributions continue to shape our nation's financial landscape. Welcome to the stage, Mr. Aganga. And then it is an extraordinary honor to introduce His Royal Highness Sanusi II. He's the Emir of Kano and the former governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Renowned for his intellectual rigor and fearless leadership, His Royal Highness has been a transformative force in Nigeria's financial sector and a powerful advocate for economic reforms, social justice, and good governance. His insights continue to inspire and shape the future of leadership in Nigeria and beyond. Welcome to the stage, His Royal Highness. Thank you. This argument has been happening the whole day, by the way. So this is going to be a very interesting panel.
A former governor of Central Bank, between finance ministers.
There you go. No pressure. Sandwiched indeed. I see lots of people taking pictures, as we all should. So thank you very much for taking the time to be here today to honor Arunmaote. I know it means the world to her to have you here. Each one of you showcases how crossing sector boundaries can spark innovation in government, markets, and non-profit spheres. And we would like to tap into the wisdom and creativity and innovation that I know you all have to offer us. So I'm going to start with a question about transitions. I also had the privilege of reading Ms. Arunmaote's book in advance. And one of the things she talks about in All Hands on Deck is about changes and the transformation that she's had to kind of inspire, but also her own personal journey. Given changes that you've all made in terms of your roles, sector, and countries, what is the biggest what is the biggest lesson you have learned about leadership? And I'll start with you, Mrs. Adeosun.
Thank you. And thank you. Happy birthday to, I call her our Auntie Aruma, but
there you
not
go.
that many years between us, but she's my auntie. And leads to the answer to your question around leadership and transitions, because my transition actually into the public sector was very much influenced by her.
Okay.
I'd been offered a post, and I was just petrified of the idea of public sector, especially after what I saw she went through. And so I thought that I'd tell her that, you know, I'm smarter than you, I'm not going to take this. And she went. If you've ever been Arumed, there are a lot of people nodding. She Arumed me into public service by saying very much what she's saying in the book. Mm-hmm. All hands are on deck. If you don't do it, who does it? Everybody has to get their hands dirty. Everybody has to play their part. And I think that's something that has driven me and still does. So when I see young people and they ask, what do you think? I say, just do it. When you get there, you'll figure it out. But just do it. Just start the train, start moving. Don't wait to be Arumed into it. Just do it willingly, and it does make a difference. No matter how small, every change, every transition does have an impact.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And I'll turn to you, Mr. Aganga. We've had the privilege of meeting before, and you've also written about this. What is the biggest lesson that you have learned when it comes to leadership, given all your transitions?
Right. Okay. I left Goldman Sachs as managing director to go into public service. So I was in private sector, Ernst & Young in London for many years, and then Goldman Sachs for many years, so going to the public service, completely different from private sector, from such organizations. But I had the privilege because just before then, I had started an organization called the Nigerian Leadership Initiative, which brought together some of the best, credible, accomplished leaders in Nigeria and in the diaspora to work together and think about how they can make change in the country. Professor Oshibaju was in one of those classes. I was privileged to have him on that class. But we had that. So the whole idea was, look, let's do whatever we can to change our country, whatever it is. So I went with that mindset. But I had the privilege also, NLI is based on what we call values-based leadership. And I think it's all about, if you have your core values, I believe in values-based leadership. And I believe when you talk about leadership, you're talking about competent, vision, values-driven leaders who want to make change. So once you're through with your core values, it's a lot easier to transit from anywhere. You respect the people you work with, you get the best out of them, and you're driven by one thing: how do I get the best for my country? It's not about you. You're not driven and motivated by money or power. You're driven by the opportunity to serve.
That's beautiful. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And now I'll turn to you, His Royal Highness. This is a question that I'm sure could take you days to cover.
Especially sitting between two finance ministers.
Exactly, yes. No pressure. Tell us about your changes that you've had to navigate as a starting point, and maybe pulling from that, tell us about your biggest lesson.
Okay, thanks. And thanks, Aruma, for the invitation. I wish I could say I came here out of the goodness of my heart. The reality is, if I didn't come, she'd kill me, so... So, okay, I think the best way to do this is talk about two things I did when I transitioned from a CEO of First Bank to Governor of Central Bank. And I think these were also defining things for me in terms of lessons in leadership. The first thing is when I first got an inkling around February 2009 that I might be considered as one of the candidates for the Governor of Central Bank. It was in the middle of financial crisis. Yeah. And I was terrified because clearly I probably was going to be one of the shortest lasting central bank governors because everything was collapsing. Yeah. And I was like, well, why didn't this offer come when things were good? You know, why am I being tapped at a time when I knew, and I was a chief risk officer before I became a CEO, so I actually had a sense of the books of the banks. And I knew the system was literally on the brink of collapse. So imagine thinking that you're being offered this job that was really coming into a crisis.
Yeah.
Okay, so I took, I was lucky I had a British friend, an old Cambridge graduate, not Oxford, who was at the Nigerian High Commission, who was at the British High Commission in Nigeria, and who happened to have done her doctoral thesis on the Asian financial crisis. So I took 3 months with her, literally 3 months with her. And I said, look, if I'm appointed governor, I want to be ready. If I'm not appointed governor, fine, at least I'd have learned something. Yeah. So I read through her PhD thesis, I read through her papers. I would go to Abuja for a week and I would have literally tutorials on how the Asian central banks got out of the Asian financial crisis. By the time I was appointed central bank governor, I knew exactly what the Bank Negara Malaysia did. I knew that it was the model. I knew what steps we needed to take, okay? And that helped me a lot because I wasn't going there to learn. So what was the first lesson in leadership? By the time you're appointed, if you don't know what a job entails, don't take it. By the time you're appointed, it's too late, okay? Yeah, because too many people go for positions. You want to be the governor, you want to be the president. Then you think when you get there, you begin to find out, you know, you don't learn. If you're not ready for it, don't be there. It's not a place to learn. You learn, you always learn, but you're there to lead. Yes. Okay, so I knew I was going to deal with the financial crisis. I had to be ready. 3 months of serious work so that by the time I walked into the central bank, I knew exactly what we needed to do to fix the banking system. This was the first lesson. The second thing was you have got to make sure you're not a general that leaves the troops behind. Because you couldn't take it for granted that everybody was on the same page with you. Yeah. While I was reading that work, the central bank was busy in denial, busy telling people that there's nothing wrong with the Nigerian financial system. you know. So you first of all had to deal with a situation where and you're meeting with the same people who had said there was no problem. You had to get them to first of all accept that there was a problem. Yeah. Okay, so what did I do? First, I got PricewaterhouseCoopers to come and do a presentation. But then I took the entire board of the central bank and the committee of Senate and House of Reps, and I said, let's go to Malaysia. So went on a board retreat. And I talked to the governor of Bank Negara Malaysia, Dr. Seti Akhtar Aziz, well known, who was deputy governor of this bank of Bank Negara during the Asian financial crisis, and who after that became governor of the central bank for about 11 years at that time. So we sat with her literally for about 6-8 hours from morning till afternoon, where she took us through what she did, where everybody had a chance to ask all the questions. Okay, and then that was when they were convinced that what I said I wanted to do was the right thing to do. But that 1 week in Malaysia gave me more mileage than I could have gotten in 1 year, trying to convince them of why we needed to inject capital, why we had to fire CEOs, why we had to bring them before the courts, why we had to set up AMCON, what we needed to do, So 1 week with the help of Accenture, and then that 1 day with Dr. Akhtar Aziz. So the 2 lessons for me, and this is what I've carried all my life. First, you want a job, please make sure you prepare for it and you're ready before you walk in. You're not going to learn how to do it when you get there. And second, when you get there, make sure that you take your team along with you. And you cannot do it alone.
I was just going to add that the Emir is extremely lucky to have known his job before he went in. That is not normal in a normal situation. Because as you know, you do not know your portfolio until after you've been sworn in as a minister. And that is when you know what to do. So I just want to make sure that we have it better.
And what I love about...
Yeah, I was going to
Yeah, please.
So there's nothing wrong with not being prepared. Just
Yeah.
take the job first and
Yes.
find people, surround yourself with people who know, which is, I think, what Emir was saying, right? So you don't have to know all the answers, but you need to know where to go
So we started
to find the answers. This is monetary tightening 101.
Now I know why I'm moderating this panel. So everybody is right, only partially, right?
I will say that I am determined not to get into trouble this time. So I'm going to be quiet.
So that's a big lesson that also comes from experience. And thank you very much for those wonderful, insightful answers. I want to build on what was said in the previous panel about success bias. And one of the things, growing up in Nigeria, one of the things my father always said to me was never blow your own trumpet. I would like you all to just take a moment to blow your own trumpet and share, tap into this success bias for us. Let's kind of blow our own trumpet about what is it that you did as a leader, and what is your advice for leaders from that perspective that made you think, yes, I deserved this role, and I'm in it, and I'm owning it. And we all have that moment. What was yours, and what can you share with us? Yes, please.
I think for me, when the oil price hit $28 and states couldn't pay salaries, it was just an aha moment, like, you're going to get fired or you're going to leave the job. So you have nothing to lose. So just go for it and think out of the box. I needed to be able to bring some innovation because everything that I was seeing and being told to do wasn't making sense in the Nigeria context.
Yeah.
So we were being told you need to cut back in the public sector. That prune the public sector. But the public sector at that time, we were in recession, was the biggest employer of labour. So once the states didn't pay salaries, then school fees didn't get paid, landlords didn't get paid. So it was going to kill the economy. Yeah. So we just said no. You know, the ability to say no to people who, Aruma is ex-World Bank, so I'm going to be very careful, who are not used to being told no. Yeah. But what was really interesting was when we said no, they just went, oh, okay then. What do you want to do? Yeah. And we said, well, we think we should go counter-cyclical. We think we need to pump money into the economy at this stage. So I think for me that was one. And then after I realized that they didn't know everything, I began to just think, okay, what else can we do? And another big thing was our whistleblower scheme. I remember, and it's great His Excellency is here, when I brought it to FEC, everybody said, no. People will be reporting each other. Wives will be reporting husbands. We don't want all that kind of things. And I said, well, we'll have a process to screen, frivolous reports, whistleblowers. Yeah. But then when we found $40 million in a safe somewhere in Ikoyi, everybody kind of said, oh, okay, maybe you have something here. And I think the third one for me that I'm most proud of is the infrastructure tax credit scheme, which we pioneered in Nigeria and which other countries are now looking at. When we looked at the tax payment, it was poor. And I called some people are actually in the room, but called some of the billionaires in the room and said, I'm going to go after you. And they just laughed at me. They said, by the time you catch us, you will no longer be minister. So I said, okay, let's work together. What happens if I allow you to use your tax to actually do the infrastructure? Because their issue was, if we pay the tax, how do we know the roads are going to get done? So we said, okay, you do the roads and take the credit. And it maybe needed a little bit more regulation as we went on, but there are significant road networks that today were done as part of that scheme. And so I'm blowing my trumpet. Yeah. So I think in summary, don't be afraid to innovate, and don't assume that just because it's Africa or Nigeria conceived, it's wrong. Because it can be. We are different, and I think we've got to recognise that. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, for me, I think it's really about focus. Okay, so all my life, I always said in any role, what is the target? What is the objective? What am I there to achieve? Okay, so as a chief risk officer, it was always about reducing losses, just about lowest non-performing loans, and basically remaining focused on that. When I got to the central bank, I looked at the Central Bank Act and said, okay, what is the central bank supposed to do? Deliver price stability, exchange rate stability, financial system stability, and an efficient payment system. That is what I was appointed to do. And I decided these were things I was going to focus on. It wasn't my job to please the politicians. It wasn't my job to be nice to the First Lady. It wasn't my job to, you know, to do it. Yeah, I know. No, you know, just as an aside, I had a story. One time I was told that my boss said I didn't like him. And I said, well, you know, if the president wants love, he goes to the First Lady. If he wants low inflation, if he wants low inflation, he comes to the governor of central bank. So that was what I was there to do. So for me, I think just being hard-nosed and focus on what you are supposed to achieve. Yeah. Okay, so and the way the central bank was structured was I had deputy governors, and I came in, inflation was like 16, 17%. I called the deputy governor of economic policy, Sarah Lady, and said, you know what? You are the governor for economic policy. You are to deliver inflation of less than 10%. That is your target. Okay? That's what I want. Just focus on that. Okay? The DG FSS, I want a stable financial system. I said, the two of you are in trouble because being an economist and a risk manager, I know this area very well. But there was the deputy governor of operations, and I never worked in operations in my life. And I said, you are to deliver an efficient payment system. I don't know how that is done. I know what I want. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to give you a target, and then you just go and deliver and so on. And by simply keeping everyone focused and everyone knowing that they were going to be assessed based on that. Sarah had to deliver inflation single digit. By the time I left CBN, it was down to 7.8%. Okay. Kingsley had to fix the banking system. By the time I left, we had fixed the banks. Payment system, by the time we started transferring money on the phones, I remember the rest of the world had not even started, you know. And so for me, it's about define. Now you'll fail on other things. People have expectations of what they think the central bank should do. Yeah. Okay, and they judge you by those. But so long as you know that this is what a central bank is supposed to deliver, and you do. So for me, my success was by the end of after 3 years in the CBN, I met the president and said, have you thought of a successor? And he said, what does that mean? I said, look, I don't think I'm going to go for a second term. So I said, I don't want a second term because all the targets that I have set for myself, I have achieved 100%. I'm not going to hang around for 5 years. So the president knew 3 years into my term that I was not interested in the second term. It also gave me freedom because the only thing, when you're a central bank governor, you've got protection from being sacked and all that. The only thing the politicians have on you is the power to decide whether you have a second term or not. Yeah. And if you tell them up front that you don't even want it,
thank you.
You know, you get that freedom and that independence, and they've just got to wait you out, you know, after 5 years and point. And that, I think, was for me critical for success.
Thank you very much.
Well,
to you, Mr. Aganga.
Yes, you've told me only. You told me I only have 1 minute. You've told me Kemi and the Emir have taken all the time. I only have 1 minute. But anyway, I will still say one or two things.
Thank you. One.
She has spoken for finance.
Two. Okay.
Two.
Okay. Auntie, two.
Happy birthday, Rona. Right. Now, actually, there are many, but I don't want to. The most important thing is transforming a ministry that was dead into the main economic ministry in the country. That's the Ministry of Commerce and Industry to the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment. With the president actually calling me and say, look, you have demonstrated that it is not about the ministry, it is about the person you have in the ministry as a minister. Yeah. That is enough, and that is everything. But I want to say also that because we're talking about leadership and capital markets, I think we need to talk about the transformation we did with the Nigerian Stock Exchange. But that was down to Aruma. She was the real, she had a vision of what she wanted, and she did the work, and we did it together in that year.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So we've heard all sorts of things. We've heard be ready, take your team with you, innovate, focus. And essentially, the most important lesson here is we really need all hands on deck, as Ms. Arumote says. I'll leave you with my Igbo proverb, which I always go to, which is, Ofosisi anaro eme ofia, which means it doesn't take one tree to create a forest. So we all have to be in this together, and you've shown just the value of collaboration, the value of individual leadership, but most importantly, the value of collaborative leadership and bringing your team along with you. So thank you so much for being part of our panel.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, our distinguished panel. Let's appreciate them. Thank you so much. Thank you. And of course, we also learned that everybody is right.
In the heart of the city where stories unfold, Judging Media TV shining bright and bold, bringing news from the corners of the globe, connects us together, no matter